Hello, welcome back to our next lecture video on standard costing. And so in this lecture video, we're going to start off by talking about how to calculate our direct labor variances. Similar to our direct materials variance, we have a price variance, which we call labor rate. We call it price variance. In terms of direct labor, we call it a labor rate variance. We don't have a quantity variance. We don't have a direct materials quantity variance. What we have is a labor efficiency variance. Okay, and so what we also have are data for last month's production. We have the number of suits, 5,000 suits. And then what we also have is that we use 10,500 hours at $20 an hour, which gives us our total cost over here. So now what we can do is, using those same formulas that we used for our direct materials and direct labor, our price variance we'll use for the labor rate variance. Quantity variance we'll use for the labor efficiency variance. Okay, so use these two formulas to go ahead and calculate out our labor rate and labor efficiency variances. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start. So I'll say my AQ times my AP minus my AQ times my SP. Now, in terms of our actual quantity, what we're looking at is how many actual hours were used. Right? Now, in this context of the labor, of our direct labor variances, we don't have to do the same thing that we did before with our direct materials variances. We have to look at how much was purchased versus how much was used. Because what we're assuming is that if these folks worked 10,500 hours, they also got paid for 10,500 hours. Okay? So you can see over here, our AQ, 10,500, which is how much they actually got paid for and how much they worked, 10,500 hours. And then the actual price that we paid them is $20 an hour. Then what we have is, again, our 10,500 that we actually paid them. And if you look back at that standard cost card, you would see that we paid, the standard price is, what we should have paid them was $18 per hour. Okay? We actually paid them $20 an hour. We should have only paid them $18 per hour. So when I do the math, again, when I do the actual math, multiplication, and then subtract the two, what I get is $21,000. And this is going to be unfavorable. Why is this unfavorable? Because look, I paid them $20 an hour when I should have only paid them $18 an hour. I paid them more than I should have. Therefore, it's unfavorable. The next one that I can look at is my labor efficiency variance. And to solve this one, I use my quantity variance formula. So this one right over here with my labor rate variance, I use my price variance. This one right over here, I use my quantity variance. Okay? So we come over here and we see our AQ times our SP minus our SQ times our SP. Now in this case, we're talking about how many hours were used, which again is going to be the same as the amount that we paid for, 10,500 hours. And then we know from our standard cost card that we should be paying $18 an hour. We are not giving our standard quantity, but we can figure it out. We can say our standard quantity is going to be equal to the number of suits. Remember, we made 5,000 suits. And then if you look back at the standard cost card, it should take us 2 hours per suit. 2 hours for each suit. So we made 5,000 suits times the 2 hours. We should have used our 10,000 hours to make 5,000 suits. Okay? So now when we do the math, this gives us $9,000. Okay? Now, is this going to be favorable or unfavorable? Well, look, we use more hours than we should have, which would imply more cost than we actually want. So this is going to be 9,000 unfavorable. Then what we can do is we can add these two together to get our total labor variance. The 21,000 plus the 9,000 gives me the total of 30,000 unfavorable. Okay? Now when we talk about some standard cost variances, I'm going to talk about some more conceptual things regarding standard cost variances, and then we'll do some additional problems. Okay? So if you look over here, variances are a lagging indicator because I have to wait for what actually happened during the month to calculate these standard variances, because I say this is how many hours we actually used. I only know that after it has already happened. So it can be reported too late to be useful. If it can be used as a tool for punishing people, you could undermine morale. Just meeting the standards, right? If this were 10,000, right, then we would have 0 variance, which means we met the labor efficiency variance. That may not be sufficient. We want to continually improve. Okay? Standard cost variances don't provide definitive evidence, but they should be an indicator of potential problems. Okay? Which means we also have to investigate the facts behind the variances. Why do we have those variances? Okay? So look at those potential reasons. And so some potential reasons for each type of variance. If we use cheap materials, that could result in favorable price variance, okay? Unfavorable quantity, and unfavorable labor efficiency. So this is what we were talking about earlier, that maybe with that direct materials variance that we talked about in the other lecture video, that was an unfavorable materials quantity variance, but a favorable price variance. Favorable price, unfavorable quantity, but then also, look, unfavorable labor efficiency. So that would make sense that we use cheap materials. What if we don't train our workers very well? How does that come out in terms of our standard costing? It means that we could have an unfavorable labor efficiency. Basically, it's taking us longer to do things than the standard. Poor supervision of workers. How would that come out in terms of our variances? It would also mean an unfavorable labor efficiency variance, in the sense that maybe we have some shirking on the part of some of these workers. They're not working as hard because they're not being supervised. Or they're doing things incorrectly because they're not being supervised. Okay? Poorly maintained equipment means that the equipment isn't working very well. And that could mean that we're taking more hours to make those products than we should be, which results in an unfavorable labor efficiency variance. Okay? We could also be using highly paid skilled workers to perform unskilled tasks. Basically, we're overpaying, and then what would happen in that situation is we have an unfavorable labor rate variance. Okay? Management by exception. Investigation of standard cost variances is a time-consuming activity. We only want to look at those variances that are really significant. Okay? Really significant, maybe in terms of absolute dollar value or in terms of the percent of actual or standard cost. These are ways that we could determine whether something's significant. Also, favorable variance may actually be unfavorable. That's what I was talking about earlier. Maybe what we did is we bought cheap materials, which resulted in a favorable price variance. But because they were cheap, that resulted in unfavorable materials quantity variance and an unfavorable labor efficiency variance. Okay? Managers should only be held accountable for those costs that they can control, and workers should only be responsible for the variances that are within their control as well. Okay? Otherwise, it's not very fair. All right, so continuing on, let's look at these. Let me just catch up here. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this. Okay, I'm back. So I'm working on the standard additional cost problems right over here. We have our Henderson Dress Company, and this is on page 243 of your course pack. Has the following standards to make one dress. Standard quantity for materials, 3 yards. Standard price for materials $6.50 a yard. Standard quantity for labor 1.5 hours per unit. Standard price $8 per hour. The company purchased 3,000 yards of material in March for $21,000. The company used 2,800 yards in March in order to make 7,700 dresses. Calculate the materials price variance. And so in order to do this, what you will do is use the price variance formula right here, okay, to solve this problem. So we'll come over here and we'll set it up. We'll say our AQ times our AP minus our AQ times our SP, okay? And so we're doing our materials price variance, so we have to say, well, how much did they purchase? Actually purchase 3,000 yards. This is actual purchase. 3,000 yards, right? Times the actual price that they paid. Well, how can we figure that out? That's given to us. We could say we purchased 3,000 yards for $21,000. That means we paid $7 per yard. 21,000 divided by the 3,000 gives us $7 per yard. Minus our 3,000 yards that we actually purchased, and here's our standard price, $6.50 per yard. Okay. When you do the math, you get 1,500, and then it will be unfavorable because you paid more than the standard, so it's unfavorable. Okay, now I'm going to pause the lecture video, and I want you to do this problem, which actually asks you to do materials price and materials quantity, and then I'll review it. Thank you. Okay, so now let's review this second problem. So our Henderson Company, standard 50 ounces of borax at a cost of $6.30 per ounce during May. The company purchased 56,000 ounces at a total cost of this. The company produced 1,025 units during May and used 53,500 ounces in the process. Calculate the materials price variance and the materials quantity variance. Okay, so in terms of the price variance, we use our price variance formula: AQ times AP minus AQ times SP. AQ is 56,000. Our AP is $6.28. The total, right over here, divided by the total purchased. Standard price is given to us at $6.30. We take the 6,000 times our $6.28. I'm sorry, 56,000 times $6.28 minus 56,000 times $6.30. Then we take the absolute value. That gives us the 1,120, which is a favorable variance. Okay, it's a favorable variance because look, actual price is $6.28, standard price is $6.30. We paid less than the standard, therefore it's favorable. If we look at our materials quantity on the next page, we use our quantity variance formula: AQ times SP minus SQ times SP. AQ is given to us. This is how much we actually used. 56,000 is how much we actually purchased. Okay, that's important. Okay, we purchased this and they used that. How much they actually used? 53,500. Now our standard quantity we actually have to calculate. How can we do that? We can take our 1,025 dresses, or units. Okay, cross that out and just say units, times our 50 ounce per standard. That gives us 51,250. Our standard price is given to us at $6.30. Then what we do is we take our 53,500, which is how much we actually used, times 630, which is our standard price, minus our standard quantity, which we calculated by taking our 1,025 units, times the 50 ounce, which is our standard, 51,250, times $6.30, which is our standard. We do the math and we get 14,175, and this is going to be unfavorable. Why is this unfavorable? Because the actual quantity used is more than the standard quantity used. Okay, that concludes our videos for standard costing. Thank you so much.